Morning, Coach. I guess let's start with yesterday's news. Cody making it official, putting him on your staff. What do you make of this move? And obviously, it's a reward for him as well.
Well, I'm excited for our team first and foremost. Obviously, anytime you have a position on your staff that you need to fill, the most important people to consider are the players, and figuring out what really makes the most sense for your current team, and also you're factoring in recruiting your future players. It's interesting because a lot of times people will just look at maybe one hire or one position, but for me, really, I look at it just like a basketball team is a team sport. I think a coaching staff is a team endeavor. So it's really all about how a group of individuals fit together and work together and support each other. And for Cody, he's been phenomenal with his level of alignment, how much of a servant he's been to our coaching staff and our players, and his work ethic, and quite frankly, his ability to help the players move forward on and off the court. So really excited about him. KT Turner's been here for a few weeks. We're really, feel good about what he's bringing to our program. He's got phenomenal experience at the different places he's been, the guys that he's worked with. And again, similar to Cody, he really brings a servant mentality to serve the program, serve the players, the coaches around him. And he definitely specializes in helping young men move forward as people and as basketball players. So those two, really excited about both of them.
Brian, go ahead with a follow-up, please.
Just maybe can you walk us through where things stand schedule-wise? The NCAA put that initial date on, and when you can start practice, but where do you think things are with the non-conference schedule?
Yeah, this has obviously been a very, very unique year from the standpoint of scheduling. You guys all saw what our non-conference schedule was supposed to be, if this had been a normal year. Hopefully Brian will give me a little credit for the fact that we actually had, probably two teams that are as good as it gets on our
Incredible games.
But obviously COVID, just like every other aspect of our lives has affected scheduling. The thing that is really, I think, challenging for everybody is different components of your schedule are controlled by different entities. So obviously the NCAA controls the most important part, which is the NCAA tournament. And there's certain factors that they weigh in to, make the NCAA tournament and be seated high in the NCAA tournament. The conference controls the conference regular season, and then also the Big 12 tournament. The MTE that you're in, multi-team event, which was supposed to be Maui. Bad timing for us to be in Maui this year, but that's controlled by the organizers of that event, and then the rest of our non-conference schedule is controlled by us. So you have a lot of different entities working on a schedule that has now been really turned upside down. The conference has decided they want to play 2 Big 12 games in December. Those games are still being worked out in terms of the opponents and the dates, but that obviously has to take precedence in that month of December, and we'll wait until the conference finalizes those, and then we'll be able to finalize our non-conference schedule. Big 12 still planning on playing the Big 12 SEC Challenge. You get 3 games with your multi-team event. And then we also, are part of the Big 12 Big East battle, who Villanova is our opponent this year. As far as I know, that game is still on. We're planning on playing that game. So that really takes you to 5 non-conference games. And with us playing 18 league games, that allows for 4 more games that we will build into our schedule starting on November 25th, the start date of college basketball this year.
Dustin, go ahead, please.
Getting back to the recent coaching hires, what attracted you so much to KT Turner? I mean, obviously you had a lot of time to think about, knowing that Luke has moved on for the program from some time. And as it relates to kind of the roles of these guys, now that you all have them in place, Luke was a defensive guy. I think Jay kind of did a little bit of everything. Neil's kind of been on the more offensive side. How do you see those roles working out with those assistant coaches this year?
Well, to answer your first question, like you said, since late March, we've known that we had an assistant coaching opening, and because of COVID, because of quarantine, because of a few other factors, I decided, it was really important for us to take our time and weigh a bunch of things in. I'm really glad that I did, because Jay ended up leaving in the late summer. So again, the coaching staff is not so much about a group of individuals. It's about how does everybody fit together. What attracted us to KT? A lot of things. High character. He's a guy with a phenomenal background. He's worked with some of the best coaches in the country. He has a heck of a reputation for helping players develop and for helping teams be their best. And he's a guy that he and I really connected well. That's important. I think at the top of the list for anyone is alignment. You want people that are going to be in line with your vision, with your core values as a program. You want people that are going to be about the right things, and he really checked those boxes. And then you asked about roles. To be honest, KT just got here a few weeks ago. Our staff is still evolving because there's a couple other positions, that one of which we weren't able to fill earlier in the year, and now we are. And then Cody's, replacement. So, we're still not to the point where everyone's here yet, have a really good idea of what we're going to do, and we'll hopefully be announcing that soon. So it's really about those guys on the staff and myself really working together to fulfill all the duties and obligations of a coaching staff. I want us as a staff, particularly our three assistants, to tag team projects a lot more than they have in the past. One thing that happens if you send someone in just one area, they can tend to get tunnel vision on just that area. That can be a good thing, or that can be a bad thing. I think with the group of guys that we have, this will be a staff with terrific chemistry and guys that can work together more on projects, both on and off the court. We'll certainly have position groups. We'll certainly have guys that are focusing on different areas, but our focus is on together, our whole being better than the sum of the parts.
Dustin, fine to go ahead with the follow-up, please. May have lost him. Nick Moyle, go ahead, please.
Hey, Shaka. Good to talk to you again. Obviously, not a lot of good news coming from the sports world in the spring, but for you guys, were able to sign Greg Brown. Now that you have him on campus and you've been able to see him a little bit and get him around the guys, what have your first impressions been? How has he fit in? Obviously, this is a really weird time for anybody to be in college, let alone a freshman coming in his first time. So just, how is he acclimated? What's it been like having him?
It's been great having him. He's a great kid. He's someone that is not afraid to work hard, and he's a guy that is, I think, fun to be around from the standpoint of teammates, and just has a really good spirit to him. That being said, he's going through the same freshman transition as any other freshman that we've ever had. I think the biggest thing for Greg is learning that whatever it is that you're going after, whether it's being the best player on the court today, or whether it's more of a long-term goal, or whether it's improving in a specific area, or whether it's something off the court, no one else can want that for you more than you. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And that, again, that's something that every freshman that's come in here, when you go from being a high school kid to a college basketball player has had to go through that transition and that kind of evolution of understanding. And that's something that he's in the middle of right now. Once you gain that understanding, then it's about just making sure that your life reflects your words. It's easy for any of us to say, hey, I want to be this or I want to do that. It's easy to set goals, but now it's about your life, every part of it, on and off the court, reflecting those goals and reflecting what you expect to happen in the future. So he's right smack dab in the middle of that. He's definitely worked hard, and he's done a good job adjusting to, again, a very abnormal time with COVID, and we're excited about continuing to help him move forward.
Nick, a follow-up, please.
Yeah, Shaka, kind of, touching on the COVID issue a little bit. Obviously, you have a guy in Andrew Jones who is immunocompromised and who is more susceptible than the average population would be. So I'm sure that's something that's on his mind, on your guys' minds. Is that something that y'all have talked about, and is that something that maybe you need to take extra precautions for him, or does he need to do something even more so than his teammates because he is a little bit more susceptible to catching that and what could happen long-term effects?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, one of our cultural principles, from the beginning has been everything we do is a domino. And that's never been more applicable than today. I think one of the things for Andrew, sorry about that, guys. If I sit in the same spot for long enough, the lights go off. One of the things for Andrew that is common sense is that the doctors are the ones that are experts on how all this stuff works and what we need to best do to protect him. So for Andrew, the person that we absolutely start with is his doctor from MD Anderson, Dr. Jabbour. Our medical folks have communicated with him, and that's kind of our foundation, our starting point. But again, everything we do is a domino. So every guy on our team needs to understand the impact that they have on each other, and that they have on Andrew, and that they have on our coaching staff. We're all around each other on a daily basis. When we're in the gym, the coaches wear masks. When we're in the weight room, the coaches wear masks. The players are socially distanced as much as they can be. Obviously, when you're playing basketball, even if it's one-on-one, there's going to be, whatever the opposite of distance is going to occur. So, we've really tried to just be as safe as we can, but at the same time, knowing that participating in a sport like basketball, there is going to be some contact. And that's one of the things that, we just try to monitor. UT Athletics has done a terrific job of giving us the opportunity to test 3 times a week. So our guys get tested, on 3 different occasions, and they've done a good job for the most part of, making good decisions around that.
Going to Jake Garcia.
Hey, Shaka, kind of piggybacking off that, when it comes to the concerns that you have about getting through a season, or the concerns that your players have about making it to the end of this, what conversations have you had with them? What are you thinking about during this time? You guys can't have a bubble like the NBA can. You play more than once a week, unlike football. What are the biggest concerns that your team has at this point?
Well, I think the guys are probably more in the moment of, focusing on the short term. I think, obviously our job as coaches is to look, into the future a little bit over the next, several weeks and several months to see, like you said, what the concerns are, what we need to be thinking about. In general, just being as safe as we possibly can, knowing that anytime you are around other people, you are taking somewhat of a risk compared to just staying in your house or in your room. And that's something that I think applies to everybody, not just our team. The testing certainly is helpful from the standpoint of, just being able to know that, we're going to get some feedback on where people are on a regular basis. To be honest with you, probably the biggest challenges with this new reality is how much do you practice, live, because when you decide we're going to play basketball and play live, then you are creating close contacts. And now once you've created those close contacts, if someone tests positive in the next 48 hours or begins to have symptoms of COVID in the next 48 hours, then that close contact can turn into a quarantine, which, right now is 14 days. So that obviously, not just for our team, but for any team in any sport, potentially could affect your ability to even go play a game, your ability to be available to play. So that's something, as we move closer to playing games, for us to really figure out and work through. To be honest with you, since our guys got back in July, I've erred more on the side of less close contacts than more. And that's been for a couple different reasons. One, first and foremost, the guy's safety. And then two, the factor of quarantine. Because we have had some guys that have experienced a quarantine. I experienced it once, actually back before our guys came back. And that is, certainly not as bad as getting COVID itself, but it's tough. You can't go anywhere. You can't do the things you normally do. And for these guys who are used to playing basketball and being, very, very active, that's a heck of an adjustment. And it also is a disruption to their progress and what they're trying to do. So that's the biggest factor, I think, once we get into our season, along with, the most important thing, just trying to keep our guys safe. Then when you play another team, you have the same considerations for them. So, you see football games getting canceled around the country, and that's not necessarily because both teams couldn't play. It was because one of the two teams couldn't play. And so those are all things that, we're going to have to do the best job we can on. It's something that we factor into our schedule as we make it. Any team that we schedule is going to have, the same or similar testing protocols that we have, because we have to make sure it's safe for them and it's safe for us.
Chris Tavares, go ahead, please, sir.
Hey, Shaka. One quick one. Are you able to give any update on numbers in terms of if you've had players test positive or staff or coaches? You just mentioned that you were quarantined. Are you able to give any insight into what the numbers are like that?
We've had some, not many, guys test positive. That's not something that we release in terms of the names or anything like that. I will say our guys, like I said, knock on wood, have been largely really, really responsible with, their conduct and who they're around. And so that's been really good since they got back. But, we're probably like almost any other team. I don't think anyone's completely immune or just kind of skated through without having anything.
Dennis, go ahead, please, sir.
Coach, you talked about all the challenges. Has there been a hidden blessing, a silver lining through all this crazy off season that's been so different?
Absolutely. There's always a hidden blessing. There's always an opportunity that comes out of any obstacle. I can tell you for me personally, it's really, when we were stuck in our homes over the first few months, just kind of really forces maybe even an added level of reflection, because you have to slow down on certain things. Not just about coaching or about your team, but just about all the different things going on in life. Obviously, our country has had even more going on than just COVID. I think another real positive for our players is it's created an opportunity to focus even more so on their growth as people, because for over 4 months, we were not allowed to be together basketball wise. We could provide them with workouts and stuff, but we couldn't, even watch those over Zoom or anything like that. So, in a lot of ways we were apart from a basketball standpoint, but we were able to get even more closely connected on some of the off the court stuff that is so important to us and so important to them, and also very related to ultimately their success in basketball. One specific area with that we've spent a lot of time talking about, guys on our team with each other, with me, individual conversations, maybe small group conversations, just continuing to raise our awareness of ourselves, the people around us, what's going on in our minds. This is a time when I think mental health for everyone is, as important and as critical to be focused on as ever. So that's been really good to just be able to communicate with these guys and, try to spur some growth and some thinking in that area.
Chris Tavares, circling back to you. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Shaka, going back to the COVID issue, is there any kind of moral dilemma, or what's your thought process of, you probably can keep these guys safer when they're within the facility and within, your control, but when they go back out into the general student population, we know college kids are college kids and the kinds of decisions that they make, and getting to test them 3 times a week so that way you guys can play basketball, versus are those extra tests that could be used for the community at large? How do you balance, but this is your job and you are able to impact these guys' lives. How do you balance the question of, should you be playing, protecting them? Are they safer under your tutelage? How do you weigh all of that within your mind?
Well, that's a heck of an existential question. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. Listen, I'm not the authority on testing. My understanding is the availability and the opportunity for testing now compared to, months ago is night and day. I'm all for, whether it's frontline workers or anyone that has symptoms, being first in line for having the opportunity to test. My understanding is that can be the case, and we can test student athletes at UT 3 times a week. But again, we leave that to our medical team. Dr. James Bray he's been our MVP at UT athletics since this happened. And Alan Harden's done a heck of a job as well, because these are dilemmas, as you mentioned. I think, again, anytime you leave your house, anytime you interact with people, you're making a decision. Probably the person that I'm closest with in my life, outside of my wife and my daughter, is my mom. And when we got back from the conference tournament, I had to make a decision. She was with us. I said, Mom, we got to get you home. So she went home. She lives in Wisconsin, where I'm from. I haven't seen her since then. I felt like that was the safest place for her. But I talk to her almost every day. And it's like this same dilemma. She wants to come down to visit. She wants to see her granddaughter. I think it's safest for her right now to be where she is. She's 72 years old. There's no perfect answers to any of this stuff. Now you talk about, should we play basketball? To me, if the doctors deem that it's safe for our players for our coaching staff, for anyone involved, officials, anyone, then absolutely we should play basketball if it's deemed safe. If it's deemed not safe, then we should not. And you got to remember, I'm coaching a group of guys that, just like I was at that age, are very, very locked in on their basketball career and have big goals and have, a lot of aspirations. If I told Courtney Ramey, hey, you're not going to be able to play for a year, he would probably try to kill me. So that's where these guys are at. Now, again, my job is to look out for them safety-wise. And again, we lean on our medical folks to give us guidance on how to do that. But you're exactly right. It's a dilemma. We had, I'll give you an example. We had a team workout on Tuesday. So our whole team's in the gym working out, okay? But we have a COVID test less than 48 hours after that. So Tuesday was one of the days where I decided, hey guys, we're all gonna be in here, but we're gonna stay distanced and we're gonna have no contact. We're not gonna play live. So we worked out for 80 minutes and we got a lot of things done, but we did not play 5-on-5 live basketball or even 1-on-1. And that's not even something you consider in the past. Maybe you did that in the past to save their legs or, to keep from anyone getting injured, but you never even thought about the things that we consider now. So absolutely, it's a dilemma.
We got 5 hands still raised. We'll try to go one at a time pretty quickly here. Travis, go ahead, please, sir.
All right, I got it. Shaka, COVID aside, you touched on it a little bit. There's a lot going on in the country. I just wanted to find out, some of the events over the past couple of months, how have they impacted you, and maybe more specifically, what's gone on at UT and seeing student athletes push for change, get a little bit of change, and kind of your viewpoint on all of that.
Well, it's been very, very impactful on me, as it has been on millions of Americans. I would guess on most of us on this call right now. Really proud of the student athletes. I think those young men and young women have done a terrific job of using their voice, of speaking up for how they feel, what's going on in our country, and the fact that they have feelings about that. They're a part of that, and they want to be a part of positive change. I'm not a big fan of just hollow statements. I think one of the things that's going to be really, really interesting as we look back at this summer and this year, maybe in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, is again, whose life reflects their words. And, that's something that, we emphasize to our guys all the time, is, saying something is one thing, and it's an important step. Communication is a very important step. But then it's about, what do we do next? A point that I've made anytime anyone asks me is, we, by role, are college basketball coaches, and our guys are student athletes at the college level with aspirations to do much more beyond that. That's what we do. That's not all of who we are, but that's our role. There are other folks who have, for years and years, played a very, very important role in creating positive change in our communities. To me, the most important thing that we can do at the beginning is amplify those positive voices. Shine a bright light on good things that are already happening. And again, try to add power and resources to folks that are already helping those in our communities. it's been really good from the standpoint of communication with our guys. They've done a great job, speaking up, and for some of them speaking out on social media. I'm proud of them for the way they've done that. They've, like anything else in life, they've, gotten some pushback here and there from different folks. That's part of life. It's a good learning lesson for them to learn to have to deal with that. But my encouragement to them is just be true to yourself and your values and what you believe. There's some initiatives as a team that we're excited, being a part of as we get started with our season, that I can tell y'all more about as we get closer to that time. Again, we don't just want to make a statement. We want to actually help in any way we can, knowing that, our primary role is to be students and athletes and coaches. And that's what we're going to continue to do.
Joe Cook, go ahead, please, sir.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, with Greg coming in, you've got another player who's he's been very upfront about what his career goals are and how long he may stay at Texas. You've had another player like that in the past with Mo, so I'm just kind of curious, what did you learn from that year with Mo about a player who knows what he wants to do with his Texas career, and how has Greg kind of gone through with that process with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not entirely different than any of our other guys. It just, as you mentioned, sometimes guys, before they even get here, have a vision of how long they'll be in college. And ultimately, that's a choice that a young man and his family make. We've had other guys like a Jackson Hayes or even Jared Allen that didn't necessarily decide on the front end that they could only be here for a certain amount of time. But they played their butts off and put themselves in a position where that just made sense to move on to the NBA. Again, as I mentioned earlier, for Greg, I think part of our job is to make it crystal clear what goes into creating success at this level, because if you want to be successful at the next level, you've got to be able to do that here first, where you are in the present moment. And then getting him to understand that he has to want all those details and execute all those details, and be committed to all those details as much or more than anyone that coaches him or mentors him or works with him or plays with him. And that's something that as a high school kid, most guys don't really have to confront, because maybe the competition or the dynamic at that level is such that you can kind of have whatever mindset you want, and you're going to be relatively successful because of your talent level. Different here, because there are guys that are 22, 23 years old who you've never heard of that will kick your butt if your mind is not in the right place. And shoot, there's guys like that, maybe not that you've never heard of, but there's guys like that on your own team. So, what your aspirations are, or what you were ranked, or what people think about you or say about you, that's not going to do anything for you when the ball goes up in the air. When the ball goes up in the air, you've got to create success for your team and for yourself. And our job is to help them understand what goes into that.
Marcus Crum, go ahead, please, sir.
Hey, Shaka. Yeah, on the subject of Greg, I'm just curious, is there anything specific that you've seen so far that stands out about him, either physically or just with his mindset or mentality, that is different from what you would see from a typical freshman?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing is the combination of his size and athleticism. And then when he's at his best, he's playing with a real violence, which, I think I've mentioned to some of you guys before, has been a big emphasis for us coming out of last season. We flat out have to be a more violent team than we were. The best way to change something like that is through recruiting. So, Greg is definitely a welcome addition in that way to our team. But I would say that's probably the biggest thing that stands out for him.
Dustin, we'll go to you, and then we'll finish with Nick, please.
Yeah, Shaka, I think last time we talked, it feels like it's been forever ago, but you had some guys still coming off of those knee issues, Donovan and Jace. Where are those guys at? And then with Gerald and then Jericho with the back, how much of those guys progressed? Are they full go? What's the status with them? And, a basketball specific question. I know you mentioned violence is something you wanted to work on. I think you mentioned noticing a while back how much teams on defense were kind of ball watching at the college level. Now that you've been able to have more time to dig into the film and things like that, what are maybe a couple of areas you guys are really emphasizing, whether it's on offense or defense, that you want to get better at?
Yeah, let me answer that one first, and then I'll go back to the injury report. Absolutely, just playing with more violence on both ends of the floor. It's been a huge emphasis to our guys. On the offensive end, probably the next biggest emphasis after that has been creating and attacking closeouts, and just putting guys in situations to do that, understanding how to do that. You mentioned ball watching from opposing defenses. That's not just against us. That's a big thing in college basketball and basketball period. So cutting has been a big emphasis because if you can imagine a defender staring at the ball and his man being on the wing, if you stay on the wing when he's staring at the ball, you're kind of doing him a favor because you're letting him know where you are without having to look at you. Simple rule for our guys this offseason as we've been working out has been, hey, if he can't see you, cut. You got to move. So that's been an emphasis. The closeouts has really been something we've spent a lot of time on, and just ways to create them and then getting better at attacking them, whether it's with the shot, the drive, the pass, the shot fake, something we spent a lot of time with our guys on. Obviously, footwork is a big component of doing that and doing it effectively. On the defensive end, just really continuing to emphasize multiple efforts. One of the things going back, and there's a project I got from a coaching friend of mine called Best of the Best, where we go back and we pull all of our best clips from every game. And one of the things going back and doing that project defensively that I realized is just the variability of multiple efforts, even throughout a game, in one game. And that's human nature, but that's something that we want to continue to push towards being more and more consistent on. As you know, Dustin, deflections is something that we emphasize a lot. We might go a 4-minute stretch and get 7 or 8 deflections in that time, which is closely related to multiple efforts. And then we might go another 5-6 minutes after that and only get 1 or 2. That can't happen. We have to, through multiple efforts, through violence and aggressiveness, get our hands on the basketball more and more. So those are a few things on both ends that we've been emphasizing, along with some X and O specifics too. In terms of the injury report we have, last year, obviously we had a lot of injuries at the end of the year, and, we have had quite a few guys that have recovered or are recovering from various injuries or surgeries. So I can just kind of go down the list. Donovan and Jace both had knee surgery in March. I think Jace had it in first week of March, and then Donovan the second week of March. Those guys are still recovering. Jace's recovery's taken a little bit longer than the doctor originally thought. It was a microfracture surgery, so those are legitimate, serious surgeries that take time, and so he's not even been cleared to go full speed, even with no contact yet. He's a ways away from being cleared to play 5-on-5. Donovan's recovery has gone a little bit faster. He still has not been cleared to play 5-on-5, but he looks great moving around. In fact, he looks a lot better than he did last year moving around. So it's just a matter of him continuing to progress with relearning how to run and jump at full speed and full aggressiveness. We're hopeful that within the next 4 weeks or so, he'll get to the point where he's completely cleared. Andrew had hip surgery in the spring. Most of you guys know. He's recovered really, really well from that. He also looks really good moving. He's not yet been cleared to play live. He's chomping at the bit and, almost, kind of frustrated because he feels like he's ready. But we're hopeful that next week he's going to get that clearance to kind of be thrown into live play. Jericho and Gerald both had their seasons cut short by stress fractures in their back, different spots in their backs. But both those guys have gotten to the point where they were cleared to play. Both of them have had really good recovery, but, I won't say that they are, necessarily, 1,000% with their back. Sometimes with back stuff, it can be nagging or it can be ongoing. So we just, our priority obviously is making sure long-term that those guys are okay and moving in the right direction. And then if that's the case, are they cleared to play? But they have been, participating in live play. Those are the main guys, that have been recovering.
Apologize. Nick, we'll wrap with you, please, sir.
Yeah, Shaka. Obviously, this is, you're going to be your last season with those 4 guys that are still left from that, 2017 signing class. And it seems kind of unique, to get 4 guys to stay together. You're going to have those 4 seniors, and obviously Andrew's been there for a long time too. So just what does it mean to, get one more season with those guys? What's it been like to, have them for 4, going into your 4th year? I mean, like I said, just kind of, you don't really see that often, especially at Power 5 schools.
No, and we went through a couple, 3 years where we were very, very young, and those guys were a part of not the first of those years, but the second and third, and that did allow those guys to play. Hold on one second. That did allow those guys to play significant minutes when they were younger. Matt, for instance, started every game of his career. Jace has played a lot. Jericho's played a lot. Royce has gotten some really good experience. Andrew, when he's been healthy, has been one of our best players. So yeah, I think when you have a group of seniors, when you have older guys, the key is just making sure that they stay connected with, number one, being in the present. It's very, very easy as an older player, as a player in your last year, to feel a level of anxiety about the future because it is coming. And there's a lot of uncertainty there for pretty much everyone. Not to mention, the COVID dynamic that's built into that now. So staying in the present, staying connected with each other because they're all going through similar situations, making sure that our communication is at a really high level between coaches and players. When guys get to that stage of their career, they have a really valuable thing, and that is experience. And so now it's about utilizing that experience and putting it to use on the court with their teammates. We say that leadership is making the people around you better. And so when people get outside of themselves, they're able to do that. It's very hard to make people around you better when you're caught up in yourself. So those are some of the things that we've talked about with those guys. They've, really done a nice job. I think Jace has had, been frustrated to some extent because his recovery has not gone as fast as any of us would like it to go. But I'm excited for those guys. Hopefully we can play, our season and hopefully have an opportunity to do some special things. Obviously, we have some great games on our schedule. The Big 12's loaded again, as always. So those guys are going to really have a chance to leave their mark.